What is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here, and welcome to the Nebula Music Podcast. This is a weekly series where I bring on some of music industry's best musicians, best bands, best artists, and really dive into their thought process, getting to know who they are and understanding what keeps them motivated and how they got to where they're at. And I'm very excited because over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be doing a collaboration with Rude Records. Rude Records, it's a very cool label that has a lot of great artists on their roster. And it's my pleasure to sit down and talk to some of them and understand their thought process. Today I have Chris Pritchard of Blood Youth joining me today. He's a phenomenal guitarist and a drummer, apparently. I mean, what's up with me interviewing so many drummers lately? I absolutely love it. But Chris is a very cool guy. I got a chance to understand his thought process, understand what it was like to have ADD growing up, and really using that to hone his skills and become a better musician. And we talk about so many other cool things, especially about touring. So if you're a musician who's trying to tour and trying to understand what that life is like, understand how you can use some of your weaknesses and use them as an advantage, this is definitely a conversation for you. Now, as I always say, if you enjoy the interview, at the end of the episode, please consider subscribing because I do this every week. I bring on the coolest musicians, the best musicians I can find in the music industry, and I talk about their mindset. I try and figure out what it is that keeps them motivated and what made them successful. And at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. We're trying to learn, grow, and hopefully one day be at the top of our game as well. But let's not waste any more time. Let's dive right in. All right, what's up, everybody? Eddie Barco here again, and I'm very excited because I've had a great time interviewing a lot of the bands and artists from Rude Records. It's been an amazing marathon, and basically to finish it off, I have someone who I'm very excited to speak to. I have Chris Pritchard joining me on the show. Chris, how are you, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, man. You know, guys, we've been going back and forth with emails. I thought I had sent him some. He thought he had sent me some. And, you know, with like the internet, it becomes this whole entire mess of just who sent what who. But we finally figured out. We finally got a chance to sit down and talk. And Chris, you're all the way out in England, right? Or in London?
I'm all the way out in England, yeah.
All the way out in the UK. And you're sitting there talking to me. I'm in Los Angeles, and it's an amazing thing, time to be alive. And I don't mean to sound like that old guy, but, you know, like the fact that I get to talk to you about music while you're, 5,000 miles away still blows me away, to this day. Cool. So I'm excited. So Chris, you play for a band called Blood Youth, and I'm excited to hear about your music, maybe how you started with that. And so, Chris, if you don't mind maybe catching me up, letting me know a little bit about your background, maybe like where you grew up, how you got into music, and we'll sort of just take it from there.
Wow. The full story. The
full story, man. You can take as long as you want, man. Give it all to me.
I don't know. I've always just been based around music. I'm pretty much the only one musical in the family other than my granddad. But he passed on quite early. So I was kind of left just trying to play music on my own. I wasn't actually allowed music lessons in school as a kid.
Really?
It was pretty funny because I have ADHD, so at that age I was like a wrecking ball.
I can imagine.
They wouldn't allow me in classes where there had to be concentration and stuff like that, So all through my school life up to the end of high school, I wasn't actually allowed music lessons.
Really?
Yeah. So I kind of just self-taught myself.
I find that odd because I feel like, people would want you to sort of focus on something creative. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's like the way most people do it, but I feel like that would be like a natural thing to do, right? But then instead they did the opposite with you. That's just interesting.
Exactly. My parents were pretty pissed off about it, I think, because I that was like the only thing other than the typical, every kid's favorite subject like art and, PE and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But music was like the one thing that I went home and I continued to do at home. So it was a bit of a bummer for me, but I was too young to even notice the significance in it. So, I just cracked on. I got given a guitar for Christmas one year, and after that, I think I got a couple private lessons by some guy who, he resembled, I don't know, he was a pretty old school dude, and he used to just come over to our house, drink all our juice, and eat all our biscuits, and then just put some sheet music in front of me, and that was it. Yeah, it was good. It was a good time. But it left me the freedom to kind of just learn whatever I wanted. So I just kind of ended up like learning like Green Day songs and stuff, and typical kind of chord progressions. Um, yeah, that was it. And then coming up to high school, I actually wanted to start playing drums. And
Really?
so yeah, so I mean, like not a lot of people know this, but I'm actually a drummer. I just play guitar. I like just running around and being up front, and you know, it's fun.
Wait, so which one do you feel like you're more proficient in, drums or guitar?
I'd say at this point, guitar, because I've been
Interesting.
out of the drum game for a long time. But just the way that we write and everything, I write like predominantly everything. So it's like it just makes sense for me to be guitar, which is I actually played bass in a band before this, and I transferred over to guitar for this band because I ended up writing a whole load of the music, so it just made sense.
Yeah. Wait, so what kind of drummers were you into? Obviously, like, I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm a drummer myself too. So like, yeah. So I tour and all that, and I can play a little guitar. I always joke around with friends like I can play "Dust in the Wind," and that's as far as it goes. I can play maybe a C chord, but like, who were as a drummer, I'm really interested. Like, who did you listen to? Like, who did you like play like, or who was your influence as a drummer?
I looked up to it wasn't even a big name at the time, but he was in a band called Texas in July, and I was obsessed with his drumming and just everything about his style and everything. His name was Adam Gray. He's now the guitar, not the guitar tech, the drum tech for August Burns Red,
Nice.
which I think everyone knows Matt Greiner. So
Yeah. That's
and also, wait, what other drummers do I love? I think I got told by Pete Riley. He's a really, really good drummer in a university. Dexter Hercules. All
nice.
these. Yeah, I
Nice,
can't
man.
remember all of them. It's been so long since I've spoken about drums. I'm just like dusting off the cobwebs right now.
He's like, oh shoot, I gotta make sure I remember some of this drum stuff. Okay, so then you basically started on drums, and how long would you say that it's been since you switched from drums to guitar? Like how many
Oh,
years?
fucking maybe like let me think. I stopped playing drums in maybe 2012
Okay, so not that
because
long ago. I mean, that's what, 6, 7 years ago?
yeah, something like that. It's quite a while away now. Um, but I still drum when I can, and I always write the drum parts and stuff, and then me and our drummer will go through everything and kind of compromise on parts and fills and shit like that. So
Yeah.
you know,
How is it like that, by the way? Like, how is it like to be a drummer, or at least have your origins on the drums, transition to guitar? I mean, this just reminds me a lot of like David Grohl, like Dave Grohl. Just
Mm.
it's
yeah,
to try and understand that mindset. Like, what is it like being a guitarist and then having to dictate your ideas to the quote unquote official drummer of the band? You know what I mean?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not one of those dudes that kind of like strongholds everything. I understand everyone has their part to play, and I respect that. It's just when you write a song, you need to put some drums to it.
Yeah.
And naturally, as a drummer, if there's a cool part on guitar, which I feel there should be a sick drum fill for, I'll put that drum fill in. And because I know about drum fills and rudiments and structures and everything like that and patterns, I'll just naturally come up with one which fits it best to the song. And so what we'll end up doing is our drummer's pretty chill with all that shit. He understands the scoop. There's
Nice.
no egos in this band, and we all just kind of sit down and just laugh about it. And if there's a fill that's too hard or too easy, he'll put one in that's like a challenge for him because he likes to challenge himself a lot. And it's fun to watch him play the parts that I write because I come from a big metal background,
Nice.
and he comes from a more predominantly like a softer rock or like emo kind of background.
Yeah.
So it's funny to kind of just like see him learn as well. Because when he joined this band, he didn't actually play a lot of double bass or kick drums, shit like that. So me introducing that to him, it took a maybe a release or two, but he's like really really good at kick drums now and like double kicks and shit like that. So
Yeah.
it's great to see him like progress as well, and I'm happy if I can be a part of that to like push him with that shit.
Did you ever get into like the double bass part like yourself? I mean, was that something you were really good at?
Was about, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you were from the metal scene, which is something that I actually never got a chance to learn how to play is a double bass. Like I can play a little bit, like for a minute,
Yeah.
not well though, and it's a different entire approach to drumming. You know what I mean? Like to be able to
Yeah.
do that and keep like a groove and all that, like it's insane. But I like how we started off basically talking about you and just like gravitated more towards drum stuff. But I want to try my.
That's where it comes from.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also like part of who you are, you know, and I think that's the important part. That's why we're all here. Like, so Chris, one of the things I'm interested in, which is sort of like what you started describing a little earlier, and I want to get into more like your actual band stuff in a bit, but I'm just curious more about you. Like, so you basically had ADHD, right, growing up, and I believe that's something that kind of stays with your whole life because I think most of us musicians have it. Did that affect like the way you focused on music? And I know you sort of explained it a little bit, but like what I mean by that is, were you able to sort of practice at like an hour at a time, or did you have to like sort of like, you know, play for 5 minutes, get distracted, and come back, play for 5 more minutes? Does that sort of make sense?
Yeah, no, I was completely lost. Like that was one of the cool things about drums is that I just got to hit shit. So I was just, once I sat down, I used to drum for at least an hour a night and just like sweat it all out, and then I'd just kind of fall asleep somewhere. It was great.
Yeah, and you know, I'm curious about this, okay? Because and if I ever ask you anything, by the way, if that you feel uncomfortable like responding or anything, you know, you let me know. You tell me to fuck off. Be like, hey,
I'll tell you to fuck up.
I know you will. I can tell by your style. But like, so I had a bit of ADHD too growing up, and I'm very fortunate that my parents, you know, they sort of saw or were able to see sort of like where my mindset was going, and they didn't stop me from trying to do music or that sort of thing. But in the UK or wherever you grew up, was it like a common thing to prescribe like medication and things that sort of calm you down as a kid?
Yeah, I was on Ritalin.
Oh, man.
Methylphenidate hydrochloride. So that was a big part of my bloodstream growing up.
Yeah. You know, I never tried it, which I'm very grateful for. As you can tell, I'm a very excited dude.
I've got to say, like, that shit was amazing for inspiration.
Really? Like, how so?
Like, not in the weird, like, taking drugs kind of way, but because it's a controlled substance, so it's fine. But that I don't like after I started to grow out of my ADHD and stuff, I still had a load of these Ritalin tablets left, and I would regularly struggle to write music unless I was on them.
Really?
Yeah, and so actually, for the most part of this band, other than this album that we're literally in the middle of recording right now, other than this album, everything up to now, I've written everything on that drug.
And you know what? Forgive me for being curious, but like, so it helps you to focus, right? And so when you are on Ritalin, right? And having ADHD, right? Having this sort of necessity to sort of just kind of bounce back and forth between different things. Do you sort of, and again, maybe I'm just stating the obvious, but do you just like all of a sudden feel like you don't need to be bouncing back and forth? And you just kind of want to focus on what's in front of you? Is that like a good description of what it feels like to be on the medication?
Like it feels like if you were to take it half an hour later after you've taken it, if you were sat down playing drums, rather than just sat down and playing drums, you would feel like you were on top of the world and that you can do anything behind this drum kit and that there's an entire crowd watching you and they're all going crazy. It was like that.
Wow.
Maybe not psychedelic, but as an inspiration perspective, that's what it felt like. And when you sit down, say if you wanted to paint a picture, but you're not into art, so you got everything in front of you, but you just don't have the motivation. So if you were to take one of these things, you would automatically just want to do it, and you can focus on it for like, because you get 4-hour pills, you get 6-hour pills, you get the 10-hour pills, and you can just focus on it for that entire duration, and you won't even want to stop, and you just want to keep going. And that's why it was fun to write music on it, because it was just constantly everything you wrote, you were like, oh, this sounds sick, like this sounds awesome, like yeah, okay, this is great, and
wow.
But yeah, and it not like it sounds like I'm describing like a terrible drug. Like,
I know,
which will put you down, but just for all the listeners, it's a pretty controlled and common substance. So
Right. I mean, the fact that we've all heard of Ritalin, right? I mean, I feel like it's part of like growing up in school and all that. I just find it fascinating because I've never used it. It sounds like if I wanted to be the king of the world and be the best drummer, like I feel like that's a requirement now. Like I need to use
like you can take it and you don't want to talk to anyone, which obviously might be seen as a side effect. But I loved it. I didn't talk to a lot of people growing up, like in school and stuff. I just kind of wrote my music and just like did my shit, and just like I did it to what I thought was the best that I could do it to, and and it was because of Ritalin, which I feel like I got that to owe to, But I just ran out of it naturally, and then just kind of started to write without it, and it took a while, and it was quite a daunting process, but I've gotten around it now.
Yeah, and so like I mean, I guess. What was the difference as you were learning to be out of Ritalin? And again, I apologize for being so curious. It's interesting to me. Every musician's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you're kind of open about it, because I definitely sometimes talk to some people that are not, and it's okay too. I find it fascinating because it's not something I talk about a lot, and I'd love to explore it. Obviously, so the medication helped you to focus and to feel on top of the world and to write the best kind of stuff you could in the state that you were. Transitioning out of it, right, as you were growing older, did you ever like sort of feel or like doubt yourself that you could ever match that focus or match like what you were doing before, now that you weren't on the medication?
Yeah, dude, I thought about that a lot, and I actually tried to get more, but they had really cranked up the
regulation.
The regulations and like the security shit that you have to do to get the pill. And it ended up turning into a big interview in one psychiatrist area, into another interview across the country at this other place, and it's just it was crazy. And I was like, you know what, fuck it, I can do this with it. So I could not be bothered to do that. So
yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad that you sort of like you believe yourself in that last minute, even if it was because you couldn't get the medication. You're like, hey.
Yeah, I was so forced into it. But I mean, at the same time, I was like the effects that it gave me, I was taking it for the reasons that it wasn't made to be taken for. I mean, I guess to focus on what you're doing is kind of the main intention of the drug. But I don't think the doctors would have been very happy me getting dose after dose just to write some metal songs and shit like that.
I mean, whatever, right? I mean, it worked for you. You know what I mean? Like, you did the best that you could. You did what you wanted to do. And that's the important part. And I think it's kind of cool. Like, it really is kind of cool. I never would have thought of using that to help me write music. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you were in like this situation and you were like, well, I mean, I'm going to use it and now I'm going to write music, which is fucking great. Like, honestly, like, that's badass. But okay, so that happened. So you basically grew out of it. You learned how to sort of function without Ritalin. How did this band come to be now? I mean, I know I'm sort of like skipping through a couple of like maybe like years, or actually maybe even walk me through like what led you to sort of start playing with bands and start like playing more professionally and touring, and then what led you up to Blood Youth. Like, that's what I'm curious about too. And that might be a broad question, but I'm curious if you can walk me through a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I left my hometown to go study music performance, which was drums, and music industry preparation.
And what was your hometown?
My hometown is the north of England. It's a little place called Harrogate near Leeds.
Okay. I'm going to pretend like I know where that is.
Yeah. Most people do. But and then I went down to a place just on the outskirts of London called Guildford to study drums and music industry prep at university. The university was called ACM in Guildford, and it's pretty well-known college, university, or whatever it is around that time. So I ended up going there, and I was kind of enjoying it, but at the same time, I was this guy in my class who was, I mean, my upbringing as a drummer, I was taught by an what do you call the military bands for the Queen and that, the choir.
I think
I'm not sure.
The corps. I think it might be. I'm not sure, corps, to be honest.
Yeah, he was like, well, pretty much, he was the conductor, or like the head dude of like the Queen's band.
Wow.
So he was like dead on the rudiments, the theory, and all that marching shit, and he was my drum teacher growing up. So I had a full on strict drum like regimen to stick to, unless I got like a whipping from him, like. Like it was pretty strict, and I got everything to owe to him because he whipped me into shape big time, and I went into that college or university knowing everything that they were teaching us for the first term, and I was just straight up bored. I was just sat in class like, I already know this, I can play this, like why am I in a class full of people that can't, and have I got to be held back until they catch up?
Yeah.
So I kind of just stopped paying attention to that and started going out, having some fun with some drinks with some friends, and
as you should.
Yeah, and I bumped into this dude who I seemed to just gotten along with immediately. His name's Danny Abbasi from Neck Deep. He's the drummer.
Yeah.
So I met him on a night out, and then we just started hanging out, became friends. He had Neck Deep, which was just starting out. It was a little baby back then. And he was telling me about it and stuff, and he would maybe get the occasional tour coming through, and I would, like skive off of class and like lectures and stuff to go on the road with him, just little tours here and there. And I kind of just decided that I want to just tour. I don't care about the qualification. I don't care about playing drums anymore, because I can play guitar, I can play bass, I can play drums. Just anyone that needs anything, I'll just tour. And my heart is for heavy music, so
yeah.
I wanted to get into that scene as fast as possible. And this guy who I met, Danny, became one of my best friends immediately, and he knew the way. So he was kind of my mentor through that. And he just kind of introduced me to these younger up and coming bands that he knew about. And so I would just kind of join these bands across like up and down the country, just playing gigs and just getting my name out there, doing covers on YouTube occasionally, and just trying to get out there, and then staying busy. And then one day I saw an ad on Facebook of this band that me and Danny both really loved at the time. It was this melodic hardcore band called Climates, and they've done a couple tours with bands like Counterparts and stuff like that in Europe. And I was like, whoa, they've done like European tours. That's huge and stuff like that. And so they were like, oh, we need a bass player in this ad. And so I was like, okay. So they gave us an email to email if you're interested. So I just literally hit them up saying nothing but yo. And that was it.
Best email.
Yeah, right? It's real good. So yeah, I hit them up. They ended up getting back to me. I went down to practice with them. I'd already learned some songs because I was pretty good with learning songs quickly and like by ear, especially bass, because it's just literally like root notes and just and that was it. I joined that band for a bit, and then I went on my first tour, which was I think it was a month-long tour around Europe. So that was a big experience for me.
Yeah. Was it like one of the first times that you were playing, like how big were the stadiums or stages that you guys were playing?
Yeah.
Immediate stadium tour out of the blue,
Right. This was more like, venues with capacity of like 200 to 400. Maybe the occasional 500. Very, very kind of small on the scale of things. But, for someone who's literally just walked out of a lecture or a classroom, it was like heaven. So, none of that really mattered to me back then. It was all about just getting out there and having fun. And yeah, that's what I had. Apparently I had too much fun though, because I got kicked out of that band later on.
Oh, really? Oh, just for having too much fun?
Yeah, I actually had too much fun, and I ended up getting kicked out. They never actually gave me a full-on reason, but I'm still really good friends with all those guys now. But yeah, I got kicked out of that band for, I don't know, young, reckless reasons. I'm not sure why, but we'll just leave that. And then I ended up joining just band after band after band as a guitarist, as a bassist, as a drummer. I was in a band from Paris playing drums, and I was just kind of whoring myself out to all these bands, pretty much just trying to fill that void that I had for that first band that I was in, which was Climates. So and then they ended up releasing. They were about to release their debut album, and there was like a lot of hype around it and stuff. And they had announced that they were going to America for a month, and then there was a European tour starting, like directly after that when they get back. And I was like, "Fuck, these guys are going to do so well." And they still hadn't found a permanent bass player that they were happy with, and I'd kind of been speaking back and forth between the guitarist and the drummer. And in the end, they just kind of asked me back to come down and hang out and see what it was like. And I ended up joining again and went on. I mean, the American tour got cancelled due to visa issues for some reason, but I went on that European tour, and after that, I was just on every tour since then.
Wow. I mean, I love your extensive experience just like touring, because it's definitely, I mean, unless someone hasn't been on a tour before, like it's definitely a different experience. You know what I mean? Like it's definitely different from being in the studio or like playing a smaller venue. It's something cool. But what I'm curious about is you seem to be very good at sort of like bouncing in and out, being the very the studio musician or like the parachute musician. Like you were very good at just like, hey, I'm going to join this band and that band and that band. Is that something that's sort of is that something that was difficult for you to learn how to do, or was it very natural to you? Were you just able, I know you were describing it a little bit earlier, but were you able to like sort of just learn the songs on the fly and then just feel out the band and understand like what they were trying to do and then just like blend in? Like, is that something that's always been natural to you?
Like, for some reason, I can just like, the amount of times I've joined a band and I won't know what the hell they're talking about, all the inside jokes, all the little noises, all the little conversations they have, you know, the accents and stuff, and I'll have to adapt myself. And I understood that straight away, you know, if this was going to work. So I straight away kind of just picked up on how to, you know, be like a social comedian. Not a comedian, a chameleon.
Both, maybe both.
Yeah. So yeah, I just kind of I just learned that pretty quickly, and it's that's probably one of the most important things, is just being socially aware and just being able to have fun with anyone. Like, you know, you gotta be able to meet people, because the bottom line is that you can sit there and wait for your best friends from, you know, your childhood to pick up a guitar and you're going to form that band that you've always talked about, you know, growing up. But reality is that's bullshit. That's not going to happen.
Oh yeah.
Like 1 in 10 times or 1 in 100 times that'll happen. But you've got to get out there. You've got to meet the right people. You've got to be in the right place at the right time. And, you know, fingers crossed that it works out. And, you know, you're going to tour a lot up to the point where you think it's starting to pay off, you know? Yeah. Like that tour that I told you about, just my first tour in Europe. It was in this, there were no windows in this little van that we were in, and there were no seat belts and no seats in the back row, which was where me and the guitarist were sat. We had all the merch and like all the hoodies and the t-shirts just on the floor in little ripped boxes, and they were all waterlogged and just wet, and we just kind of couched out on that for the entire month. And not a bad thought in my, like, even entered my head. I was just having the fucking best time.
Yeah.
So you're gonna sweat, you know, but you've got to realize that, you know, it's like you got to make that choice early on if this is what you want to do, and if you're right to do it, you know. And luckily, I'm pretty good with people, so, you know.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, I mean, I feel like your experience sort of explains it for you. But you know what? I'm curious about, what do you mean by like, if you're right for it? You know, and I think you explained it a bit. But you're absolutely right. I think what a lot of people, and this is just me, you know, sort of trying to explain.
Well, yeah, you being a session musician, you know about that, don't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. But you know what's interesting is I feel like most people sort of fall in love with the idea of, like, you know, tour buses and like the hotel rooms and that. You know, I feel like that is maybe at most like 10%, maybe 5% of the time. You know what I mean? And on the way up there, it's a lot of exactly what you described. You know, windowless vans, like riding in the back. Even if your band is semi-successful, like that tends to be the case quite a bit. And so, like, when you say be right for it, do you mean like someone who's basically willing to sort of eat shit for a while, even if like the band is doing fine, like to understand that you have to eat shit still? Like, is that sort of what you mean?
Yeah, kind of. Like, I mean, if you write for it, what I mean is like that as well. You know, you've got to be willing to, you know, you've got to condition yourself into a state of mind, which is like, okay, I'm going to be doing this for, you know, I've got to prepare myself to do this this dirty work for like the next 10 years. Okay. And
Yeah.
if I'm happy to do that for 10 years and grind my ass off, then nothing will ever let me down. And if something happens which benefits us and, everything starts paying off early, like in the first 3 years or 4 years or whatever, then, all the power to you, that's it. That's a happy moment. But, you've got a condition. Like, some people get into this industry just for the wrong reasons. They want to, if you're looking for a band just so you can become like the star and you're like the guitarist or the drummer, and it's you only have your own interest, like what's it, your own interest heart or something, you're putting yourself in front of everyone else. It's not going to work. You've got to realize that your position is the same as everyone else's, and you've got to be able to work the same as those guys work. And if you can't work the same way those guys work, on either, if you're not a drummer, you don't have all these cymbals or anything like that to carry, then find something to do it, like graphic design, like just tour managing, any of that shit. There's a billion jobs that come around, like being in a band and just the music industry, that it's just, you can always be busy. And that's one of the things that I love about it, because I keep myself busy a lot of times by designing. I do all our t-shirts and shit like that,
Nice.
And I'm doing that. And when I'm not feeling productive, that's what I go to. Obviously writing as well helps, but you've just got to be the right person and know that you're not going to bitch out.
Yeah. No, fuck yeah. I love how you're describing that. I didn't know that you were a designer, dude. That's really cool.
Well, design is a pretty heavy word to use for it. I know how to make our t-shirts look good.
That's crazy. I'm a bit of a designer too, which is why I love it when someone else knows like how to do at least something, because it's, it's like the same thing as being a painter. There's some that can paint the Mona Lisa, and there's some that can paint a little smiley face, but you're still technically a painter. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's cool though. I completely agree with what you're saying. I think in our industry, it's a beautiful thing because there's so many things that you can do with it. But being self-aware, in my opinion, and it sounds like your opinion too, it's probably the most important thing that you can do for yourself prior to, giving it your best shot. And I think it's something you can figure out as you go along too. But you're 100% right. I think if you don't know what's important to you, then you're going to sort of be wasting your time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're in it for the wrong reasons, then you're going to be disappointed constantly. And I see it in up-and-coming bands around us right now. That they're just, they're all playing this type of music, but them all personally, and they don't like that kind of music.
Yeah.
And you can see how stressed they're getting because they're not getting the big tours. They're not doing this in their first 2 years of being a band. And you just think, I couldn't do that. And you watch all of them just fall apart like flies. It's just like, it's sad to watch, but at the same time, you dig your own grave at the end of the day. You just got to fucking lay in it.
How often do you see that? Like, how often do you see musicians and bands fall apart like that?
Oh, fucking all the time. Up and coming bands in the UK, especially in the pop punk scene in the past 5 years, have just been intense. And that pop punk was on a big hype recently, and I don't blame all these bands for jumping on that bandwagon. And I respect the ones that came out on top and that they actually try and they mold the pop punk sound to their own accord. Like if they're into skater punk rock music and all that shit, they'll make it like a hardcore version of pop punk. But when a pop punk band just comes up and they're just playing watered down fucking shit melodies and for a fact that they're all moshers and they all love heavy music, but they're just doing it just to get out on the road, and it's just like, just stop doing it. Because I did that. I did that with growing up, like pouring myself out to all the bands. I just wanted to do it and then, just be on the road. But at the same time, I wasn't happy because I was joining these bands and not playing what I loved, which was just heavy ass music.
Yeah. Do you feel like that's part of the journey though? Do you feel like that's part of the learning curve? Because I feel like all of us as musicians, when we're young, I don't really know anyone that sort of had it figured out when they're kids. You know what I mean? But like myself, for example, I didn't necessarily play what I wanted. You know what I mean? And so until I sort of grew up and learned exactly what to go after. Do you feel like that's part of like the musician journey? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like you have to do that at some point, but to do it in a way where you think it's going to pay off and that it's this is my this is the band and this is going to pay off, and you know that you're not happy. You're just happy because the shows are getting a little bit full. I'd rather play an empty room, like playing the music I love, than like a semi-full room playing music that I just don't agree with.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, you've got to tick those boxes. You've got to kind of earn your stripes growing up. You've got to kind of hoist yourself out a little bit, and you got to experiment with different kinds of music. You got to like get on the road a little bit, and you get that experience, and you can use it to your advantage later on.
Yeah,
which is where Blood Youth comes in, because that like Blood Youth is a product of every like bit of experience that I and the past members have had through Climates, that band that I told you about. And
yeah.
So yeah.
So is everyone from Blood Youth like from Climates, or are all of you like from different bands?
No, so pretty much I'm the only one left from Climates. So when Blood Youth, when Climates ended, it was the vocalist left, and we were left as 4 people who needed a vocalist. So I knew Kaya, just from growing up and just the local music scene around our town and shit. And he was in a shit hot band around the town, and everyone like looked up to them. They would be playing like the pubs and the gigs like at the weekend and stuff, and in the local floor shows, like very cool like underground hardcore scene there and stuff. So I knew him from that. And so I gave him a call because he like recently up to there, he'd just kind of gone through a bit of a hard time in life and just kind of given up and just kind of flown out to Barcelona just to get a job and just get like a fresh start. So I knew that he was kind of heartbroken over not being able to do music again. So I gave him a call, and I had all the faith in the world in him because I know that I've watched him progress with that band growing up. Yeah. So I was like, yo, this guy can kill it. So we got him involved. He did the last Climates tour, which was with a band called Vanna. That was in Europe. And then after that, we were like, yo, this dude's fucking miles better than anything we've had in the past. Like, let's start writing immediately. So all of us kind of just started pitching in ideas, and we stayed in this little attic with like fucking spiders everywhere, and just like we woke up early, like, and we worked until early hours of the morning, just putting riffs together, cool choruses, and just like pretty much testing the boundaries with our vocalist, like Kaya, and he was just nailing it all. So we just thought, this sounds so much sicker than what Climates was. So let's just start again. Let's just fucking let's put all our eggs in one basket this time. Let's not dip our toes in. Let's just jump in. And so we just went full throttle from the start, and we just fucking hit the road running, and that was it. From then on, it's just been pretty full throttle.
Yeah. How long ago was that?
That was, I think this band started in 2015. It wasn't even long ago. It was like 3 years. We recently just turned 3. So
yeah, which is not very long for any band. I mean, it's and especially like a successful band, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like you need to be a little bit older than that, but it seems like you guys have seen some pretty good success in a very short amount of time. And like, how many albums do you have like right now for your band?
We've only got one out. So we've got one album out right now, and we've got 2 EPs.
Got it. And you guys are working on a new album, right?
Yeah. So we've got like 13 tracks, which I'm just kind of, melting my way through right now. I think I'm currently literally just about to start bass on track number 9.
Well, let me ask you this, like for you guys, right? And obviously I think it's different for every band and for every, album that people make. Like, how long does it take, or is it taking you guys to sort of make your album? And the reason why I ask this is because I think some bands out there, and again, I think different tactics work for different people. Some people try and rush it through, they try and make as much as they possibly can, and then they narrow it down to like, 10 tracks and release something, which is fine. And some other people sort of take their time. Like, I'm curious, like, what kind of band are you guys? Do you find yourself like taking your time, sort of, kind of like pushing it through, or maybe even like a balance of both, if that makes sense?
Yeah. This album, the last album, it came so naturally. Like I mentioned before, it's kind of just, it comes from me just kind of writing on my own, and then I'll present it and demo it with our good friend Robin, who we do everything with. He'll be recording this album, actually. He's a really good producer, so I'll demo it with him and then present the idea to the other guys, and everyone will just start working from then on. But for the first time ever, due to just personal issues with me, like beginning of 2017, just throughout that year, this album's taken a long time to write, longer than we thought. And it was a very, very like hard process to try and get back to writing.
Yeah.
Just because I took a big break out, and also I didn't want to do the same shit, because that album before this one, it's called Beyond Repair. It was our debut album. It was the same sound that we'd done in our past two EPs before that as well. And
Yeah.
I was growing a bit old of that kind of style. I was like, you know, it doesn't matter how far I stray from the music I love, but I'll always go back to loving like nu metal and all those old like 90s style bands, like, you know, like Deftones, Korn, Slipknot.
Yeah.
And that's where my heart is. So I was like, yo, for this album, I don't want to fucking tour for years on it and just keep playing stuff that I'm slowly not going to agree with in the end. So, and that's what this band is about, like I just spoke about. It's this one is about having fun and just doing what you want. So with this album, I definitely had to kind of relearn how to write, but in a different style, because this album sounds tons different to anything that we've done before.
Like what direction are you going towards, too, if I can ask?
Yeah, it's way heavier than normal.
Nice. I love what you were saying, because it's so true. Like, I think when you have to play the same, 10 songs for like 18 months on any kind of cycle, it can get a little, tedious.
Dude,
right? Especially if you don't like the music. If you love it, then, you can manage through it. But if you don't like it, it can get old pretty fast. You know what I mean?
And like Blood Youth, the sound that we're known for at the moment was a very kind of, it was very mutual agreement and very much mutually loved genre at the time. It's kind of like it's heavy, but it's almost like commercially heavy.
Yeah.
And so I was like happy with that. As anything, as long as I get to kind of like, I for the first time ever I get to actually play my riffs. Out of all this touring and all these years of touring with all these other bands, for the first time ever, I get to actually play something that I've written. And to me, that meant everything. So I was like, yo, all eggs in the basket, let's go. And now, still playing that first song that we ever wrote, I don't know how the fuck Metallica do it, because I'm over it. Like, I love the songs. I love the shows. The songs mean a lot to me, and they always will be. But some people out there, they got to understand that it just becomes muscle memory. Like,
yeah,
as a drummer, muscle memory is what you kind of rely on. It just becomes too easy. And so with this album, I wanted to like really push the boundaries with what I can do and what we can push Blood Youth to do, because I want this band to kind of start. I want us to start turning heads. I want us to start rattling cages, and I think this album's going to be the one to do it, because there are some parts in this album which even I'm like, that doesn't even sound like us, but fuck it, we're gonna do it anyway. Like,
hell yeah. I mean, that's very lucky that you guys get a chance to do that. Is everyone on board with that mindset of just kind of like, let's just go balls to the wall and let's just do what we want?
Yeah, everyone loves it, and we all kind of love heavy music, and we all are the same. We all love the classics like Slipknot and all this, and all these up and coming bands as well. Like, they're taking over the world, like Code Orange, Knocked Loose, all these sick heavy bands. And heavy music is really in a good place right now, and in the UK as well. But
why is that, by the way? Like, why is, and obviously I think heavy music has always been around, just like almost every other style will always have its niche market. But you're absolutely right. Over the past couple of years, it has seen a bit of a resurgence, and I'm curious, like, if you know why. Like, why is it right now that it's sort of starting to blow up again? If you know by any chance.
No, I don't actually know. It's just it's fun to see, because I was getting fucking sick of every single up and coming band becoming a pop punk band. Yeah, I mean, it's great that they're getting out there. They're getting busy. They're having fun playing music, but at the same time, just everyone loves a good riff.
Yeah.
So I don't know. it's cool. It's cool to see. I'm happy with it, you know.
I'm glad. I'm glad, man. And you know, I love what you're describing because this reminds me a lot of, well, I mean, there's a lot of bands that have done this in the past, but like legendary bands. This reminds me of like Rush, for example. Like Rush, obviously, it's a different style. It's a somewhat different style.
It's intense.
Intense, right? But one of the things I love about their history, you know, like a lot of people don't realize this, but you know, Rush was very close to being dropped by their label. Like I think after the second or third album cycle, you know, like the first album did okay, second one did and then by the third one, you know, the label was pretty much like, you guys are done. And I remember listening to an interview with I forget the bassist's name, and Neil Peart, but they were basically just saying what you were saying, how they were basically sick of playing, you know, what they considered pop or what the label wanted them to do. So they figured if we're going to get dropped anyways, we might as well just do what we want. And they went back to the studio, scrapped everything, and just re-recorded what they wanted. And they made a new album, and the label released it. And that was their biggest hit for a long time. And it was interesting for them to go back, scrap everything, and just say, fuck it, let's do what we want. And that becomes your hit. And when you actually want to do whatever the fuck you want to do.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, like you'd be surprised what can come from just letting go and just like doing what you want to do. Because everyone's like image of the music scene is just kind of like, or the music industry, in fact, like globally, is just, you know, to be what the other person wants you to be, you know, the evil stories of the music industry. But in this world, in the heavy world and in the pop punk world, and, you know, it's all just about having fun at the end of the day. You know, if you're not having fun, that's like the most important thing to me anyway. And I want to keep that fresh. So I'm writing a heavy as shit album because I want to have fun.
Hell yeah. It's important, man. And the truth is, when you learn how to be yourself, when you learn how to, you know, value what you want to do, because obviously in this life, there's sort of give and take, you know, with everything you want to do, there's a time to compromise and there's a time to sort of stand your ground and say, this is what I want to do. But when you're willing and you know when to do that, and you stand your ground and you say, this is who I am, this is what's fun to me, and you can sort of keep that going, then no one can tell you what to do after that point. You know what I mean? Like that, you become your own man, you become your own band, you sort of break away, and there's freedom that comes with that, musical freedom, which I love. You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. If you restrict yourself, you know, that can only go so far. You know, you got to let go at some point, and you'll start to regret all the years that you did restrict yourself.
Absolutely, man. Man, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to speak to me, man. I'm fired up after like talking to you. I mean, you're just like on it. You're giving me honest answers, and I love that because I love talking about this stuff with you guys. So, I mean, like to sort of start wrapping things up, like obviously you're telling me that you guys are coming out with a new album very soon. Like what else do you see, or what else do you think is next for your band? Like what else do you guys see yourselves doing? Obviously there might be like an album, there obviously is going to be a tour, but do you see, like, do you guys have any sort of plans for like the next 5-10 years? Is that something that you guys sort of do?
Just keep going. Don't plan anything, you know. If you plan things, you're going to get let down. But, you know, just keep working hard. You know, I'm not going to change. I'm going to keep doing this until I'm I think I've given myself like until 35. If it's not paying off hard by then, you know, that's it. I'm gonna throw in the towel. But until then, I'll be going 100 miles an hour each time. So,
hell yeah! How far are you from that? From 35?
I'm 24 right now, so I'm good.
Oh yeah, you got 11 years, man. You got a long way to go. But I love that you're going 100 miles an hour, because I'm 100% believer that if you're gonna do something, you might as well go balls to the wall, throw it all in, and just do it with your full heart. Why be half in it? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Fuck giving it like 10%, you know. I fucking hate seeing bands that, you know, like I just mentioned, that are just kind of doing it for the sake of it. And it shows in their live show, you know. You just look at these people on stage and you're just like, that guy's he's struggling to even play guitar. He doesn't even look like he's like into it. It's just, how am I meant to get into it if they don't even believe in it, you know? So, you know, fuck that. I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and everyone else in this band is going to keep doing what they do, and, you know, whatever comes. But, you know, we're just going to keep having fun with it, and, you know, fuck everyone.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. Absolutely. I love it, man. I feel like you've said everything that I've wanted to learn from you. And I love getting a chance to know musicians because it's one of my favorite things to do. I think it's something everyone should really do. And one of the things I like to do at the end of every episode, even though every conversation is different, I like to sort of ask, and even though you've done a really good job of explaining everything, if there's a guitarist out there, like a bassist or a band out there, they're looking to sort of do what you're doing now, or they're trying to sort of find their way or find their sound, or like learn how to just, be themselves and not compromise who they are. Like, what would you advise them to be sort of focusing on right now? Something simple that they can sort of keep their mindset on so that they could keep on being themselves and keep on pushing their career forward, if that makes sense.
I mean, just any advice is just to take off the fucking blinders and just have fun with it, just be free and just create what you want to create. If it doesn't suit your quote mark sound, fuck that. Just put it in, have fun, turn some heads, and, stop worrying about the aesthetics. Those will come in time, but, you can only spend so many years worrying about how many people are going to show up, or, how we're going to dress for this, or, all these things that just don't fucking matter in the end. You just fucking have fun with it, and whatever comes will come, but you'll never find out unless you let go.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation today. This was the last episode with Root Records, and man, am I blown away with some of these musicians. I mean, these guys are so cool. They're so down to earth, and they each have a very unique story. And I want to take this moment to thank Root Records for making this happen. It has been an amazing experience getting a chance to meet some of these artists and really understand their thought process. I feel inspired, and I hope that some of you feel inspired as well. So if you enjoyed these interviews, I have way more content coming your way. I have more collaborations coming up very soon and really cool musicians coming on the show. So definitely consider subscribing and stick around because I've got lots of great content coming your way.